Hello and welcome. In this video I wanted to do something a little bit different and cover some trivia that I found out about the Admech while making my other video series about them. You may have seen some of the trivia in previous videos, but I figured I would gather all of that in one place, as well as covering a few things that I didn't cover at that time, to give you an idea of what kind of fun facts you can expect in this video. For example, we all know the Skitarii are the main forces of the Admech. However, how many people know that the name Skitarii is most likely originated from the Latin word citari, which means to seek knowledge or to seek knowing, and that's very fitting for the Admech because most of their crusades are about hunting down old and lost STCs in order to reclaim lost knowledge that once existed in the Imperium of Man and in the Mechanicus forces. Additionally, it could derive from the Latin word scutari, which was a type of gladiator in the Roman Empire. In any case, I just thought that was kind of interesting, and this is the kind of stuff you can expect in this video, along with some history and mythology and things like that. Continuing on the theme of naming conventions, we don't have to look far from the Skitarii for something of this nature, such as the Sicarians, which are a branch of brutal assassins and infiltrators for the Admech forces, and their name most likely derives from the word sicari in Latin, which roughly translates to dagger man or dagger wielder. And to bring a little more context to this, the Sicari are probably one of the earliest known assassins who were known for their efficiency and brutality by the Romans, as well as other tactics such as disrupting supply lines. However, ironically, the Sicari were not working for the Romans, but rather against the Romans, and the irony is that the Admech are mostly based off the Romans, and the Sicarians for the Admech are their elite assassin force, but in historical reference, the Sicari were actually Hebrew assassins in the Roman Empire that would oftentimes wage incredibly brutal war against the Romans. Another interesting naming convention is the Fulgurite electropriests, because the word Fulgurite actually has a real-world meaning, and what Fulgurite is Fulgurite is the fused glass-like substance you get when lightning strikes sand or other types of soil. And as you can imagine, getting hit by one of those electrostaves is pretty much like getting hit by a bolt of lightning. Now to move away a little bit from the naming conventions, let's look at something like the Lucius Forge world, which pretty much employs Zap Brannigan tactics, where they send wave after wave of men into the Tyranids to essentially be eaten, and then the metallic parts were recovered and put into new troops until the troops became too metallic to be eaten by Tyranids, and thus they were able to rebuke the Tyranid assaults. So I guess that's one way to defeat Tyranids if you're ever asked on how an army would go about defeating them. However, that's not what is exactly the most interesting thing about Lucius, because when you look at the Lucius Forge world itself, it's a hollow world with a sun existing in the center, which they use as a power source and as a means to forge armor and weaponry. The big thing about this is that when you think about something like this, what it's most likely referencing is a Dyson Sphere, and because the tech priests of Lucius don't really know what it is, and the term Dyson Sphere probably doesn't exist in the world of 40k, it isn't something we see commonly. And what a Dyson Sphere is, it's a theoretical structure that would be built around a sun in order to harness the energy of the sun. And now, considering that the sun is inside the Forge world itself, as well as being a power source for it, I would have to assume this was a Dyson Sphere built during the Golden Era prior to the Dark Age of technology, and that's just kind of a cool fact. Maybe one day in the future, the Adeptus Mechanicus will figure out this technology once again, and we'll see a lot more Forge worlds being built around suns. Now, the Admech are known for referencing real-world weaponry in their naming convention, such as the Sidonian Dragoon, where the Dragoon is a type of cavalry, or the Ballistari, which is most likely referencing a ballista. The Cataphrons might be referencing cataphract, heavy forward cavalry, and the Scorpius is probably referencing the Scorpion weapon due to its accuracy and the ability to ignore line of sight. There is one more naming convention that is very interesting that I definitely want to talk about, which is the Onager Dunecrawler. So in the lore of the Admech, the Onager Dunecrawler was built by a tech priest who had never been to Earth but had heard stories of Earth mules, and using the stories that he heard about them being a beast of burden, he decided to build a machine that would resemble them and would assist in carrying heavy materials, just like the beast of burden the mule on Earth carried. Now, that's not where this story stops. As some of you might know, the Onager is actually an ancient type of siege weapon. It was a sort of catapult that was wheeled around the battlefield and used during sieges. Now, there's actually an additional interesting aspect about the siege engine that really ties this whole thing together. The Onager siege engine was actually named after the Onager mule because the action and sound it made when releasing the projectile that was loaded in it were reminiscent of the kicking action of the Onager mule in that region. So what the Onager Dunecrawler is it's a fictional siege engine which was designed by a tech priest who's never seen a mule but heard stories of it, and is named after the Onager siege engine, which was designed by real-world ancient engineers that named the siege engine after a mule. So it's kind of really interesting how that all ties in together, and it just shows how much thought Games Workshop put into some of these units. The weapon options that the Admech carry are no exception to this rule. For example, we all know that the Infiltrators and Taraxi carry flechette blasters. The flechette round is actually a real thing. It's a type of round that uses many small darts to essentially shred an enemy target apart with these little projectiles. It can be used in place of buckshot in a shotgun, for example. More so when we look at something like the plasma plasma culverin. A real-world culverin is actually an early type of hand cannon, and it was a predecessor to what became the musket. A caliver is also a type of handgun, and an arquebus is an early type of long gun that was supported by a tripod at the end of it. So all those names are very accurate to what they are, and very reminiscent of that ancient technology. And there's also the Icarus array, which is an anti-air weapon on the Onager Dunecrawler, and as many of you probably know, it's referencing the story of Icarus, where Icarus was a character who made wings out of feathers and wax and was able to fly with them. However, he flew too close to the sun, and as such, the wax in the wings melted, and he fell down to the earth to his death. So that's a very fitting name for an anti-air weapon, though I'm sure most of you probably already know that story, as it's a very common one within mythology. Now, contrary to the Icarus array, one thing that most people probably aren't aware of is the Autocadiasis of Archenland, and this one goes kind of deep. So Acadiasis is the symbol of two snakes around a staff with the little wings on top, and it's a symbol you see on ambulances these days in the United States, and where that symbol originates from is the staff of Hermes, as he was the one who carried the Cadiasis staff in Greek mythology, and in Roman mythology he was known as the god Mercury. Additionally, Hermes was seen by some as the god of travel and commerce, with Athenians especially associating him heavily with the navy and their expansion. This is especially interesting because what many don't know is that the Land Raider and the Land Speeder aren't named after what they travel over, but rather they're named after the tech priest Archenland, who was the one who discovered their STCs. And I'm not sure if this was all a coincidence or if this was intentional by Games Workshop, but that would be a really cool thing if they took this character of Archenland and based him off of Hermes, and then created this item for him called the Autocadiasis of Archenland, which is a relic that the Admech can pick up, which is a healing relic, and that's associated with medicine due to it being the staff of Hermes. But who knows, maybe it was all intentional. And one little thing that I found cool was that when the Holy Order warlord traits were introduced, they're actually based off of the Holy Orders that were mentioned in the Admech Codex themselves, so that's not really any kind of trivia, but I just thought it was something that a lot of people missed, and I just wanted to point it out because I thought it was kind of cool. Anyway, I'm sure I missed plenty of little trivia facts here and there in the Admech army. If you can think of any on your own, please share them in the comments below, as well as any facts such as this that you might find interesting for other armies, as I definitely always like hearing little trivia facts like this. And I know this was a bit of a different video, so it's just something I wanted to do because I found it very fun. If you liked it, let me know because I can do more videos like this in the future. And as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like, subscribe, and share, as it really does help the channel out. And have a great day. Bye.